So the question you ask is why some countries with weak state governments, commonly called fragile states in our business, why some of these countries fall into civil war, leading to mass displacement, and others don't. The answer is not simple. One of the starting points for the answer to the question is, how are these countries governed, or poorly governed, or badly governed, or not governed at all? Some of these countries are repressive autocracies, which are ripe for rebellion, but others are fledgling democracies, struggling to make their country work. One interesting historical perspective on this is that in the 1990s, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, many countries raced to have democratic governments. But of course, they assumed, oversimplifying it, they assumed that having an election created a functioning government. You need other institutions to balance the power of the state. You need duly elected legislatures. You need an independent judiciary. And so many of these countries didn't have the requisite institutions to create a functioning democracy. And it often is the case, the government could then focus its governance on appealing to the needs or the demands of a particular group of people, a particular class, a particular sect or ethnic group, and that can often lead to a lot of disaffection elsewhere in the country, especially if that government is repressing the rights of minorities, or if that government is inequitably distributing resources, or if it fails to foster a common national identity which all people of all classes and sects can rally around. When that fails to happen, a country is then ripe for rebellion or ripe for some kind of internal conflict that could lead to a full-fledged rebellion. An opposition group needs armaments. And one very real example is how much of the fighting and the conflict in the Sahel was supported by the cachet of armaments from the Gaddafi government after it failed. So the ready availability of armaments is a key component. In addition, any kind of opposition group or rebel group needs financial resources, and an access to marketable or valuable natural resources can also often fund a rebellion. In addition, they often rely on the support of regional or external powers. We look, for example, at the case of Yemen, where both the Saudi government and the Iranian government actively participated by taking sides in this internal rebellion. And of course, the injection of Islamist elements into these conflicts can often intensify and fuel the rebellion. Probably the best example of it is Syria, which began as a homegrown democratic uprising in request for greater civil liberties and freedoms from an oppressive regime. Very soon into this conflict, there were outside elements like the Al-Qaeda and eventually ISIS, which hijacked this homegrown request for rights and freedoms and turned it into an all-out civil war that bloodied throughout the century. So when some or all of these elements are involved, whether you have a aggrieved or disaffected population, if you have access to armaments, if you have access to financing through natural resources, if there are outside powers which support or provide advantages, and if you have Islamic terrorists involved in the fighting, all of these can take what is probably a fragile state into an inflamed state, and is really like lighting a match to a tinderbox when all these elements are